Okay, well, I figured I'd do another trap today. I'm sitting here underneath my porch, it's getting ready to rain, and I figured today would be a good day for it. So what we're going to do today is Paiute Deadfall, and I'll show you how to carve it up, and then maybe I'll get a little piece of log or something and we'll set it, and I'll show you how it goes off. So I'll show you how to set it too. So I got a stick here that is, yay long, and remember when you're doing these traps, nothing has to be perfect. I mean, you can get away with a little bit of margin almost on all of them. So the first thing I want to do is I want to square the stick off on one end, and I just do that by cutting into it a little bit and try to do this and not get attacked by my cat. And my knife is a lot sharper than I thought it was. Okay, so anyways, and I need that stick too, which the cat just ran off with. But anyways, so set this here. I got one side squared. Next thing I gotta do is decide how long I want this. And it's a little crooked, but I can actually straighten it up a little bit. So I'm thinking I want it, I don't know, probably about this long. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing on this end. And I'm just guessing on these sticks because it all would depend on the size of the animal you're trapping. The bigger the animal, the bigger the trap, obviously. This trap I'm going to set up for basically like chipmunks and stuff like that. So after you, I don't know if you saw that, but after you score around there, you just give it a snap and it'll break right off. And then I can just take my knife and square this up a little bit and make it nice and easy. So now I got a stick with two nice square ends. So on one end of the stick I want to put a groove so that I can tie a string to it, and I do the same thing there. I just run around it and put a nice little cut into it, and then I just take my knife and run around it and dig it in almost like you're putting a V-notch in it all the way around. And then I turn around and I do the same thing on the other side. Very carefully not to cut your knee. Normally I'd probably do this on a wooden stump, but I'm really not putting that much pressure on it, so there's really not that much harm. And then after you do that, you just kind of clean it up a little bit. And all you're doing is putting enough of a groove on there to hold a string. So there, basically that's all I need is just a little, like a little beaver chew around it. So now that you got this on there, this is the end that you're going to tie a string to. So up here on this end, you need a number 7 notch, and I try to hold it back about an inch or so because you want the upright to be on the outside of whatever your weight is. So if your weight's like, say this knife is the weight and it's leaning against there like that, you want this number 7 notch to be outside of the weight. So next thing I'll do is do that, and it could be an inch, inch and a half. It's really your preference. And I just put a number 7 notch in that. Just like so. Okay, so let me go, well, you know what, let's carve that upright up real quick. Let me go get another piece of stick and I'll show you how to do the upright. Okay, so we got this piece done. Beaver chew on one end and notch on the other. So now all we need is, this is the stick that goes at an angle. So now we need something that will be an upright. And you just want to sort of judge where you want it, and I think right about there is where I want this one. So now that I got it marked, let me put this right here. Now that I got this marked, this upright has to have a like a V notch on the, it wouldn't be a notch, like a V-shaped point. So first thing I do is I take my knife and I make a cut, and I just make it in a little ways, and I turn it 180 degrees approximately. This is all guessing, and do it again. And then usually I just take it and turn it 90 degrees from that and give it a snap. And usually it'll snap out of there, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's okay, because we're going to square it up a little bit more anyway. And we don't need that other piece, so now all you gotta do is just clean this up. And you can play with all these little notches and stuff a little bit to adjust them and make them work a little better for you. Once you get the trap put together, everything's got a little bit of adjustment to it. Now we got that done. Basically, we have the trap done. The only thing we need now is another small stick. And this trap will set like this. So basically we need just another tiny little small stick, which most anything will work. And actually we'll use this stick on this end. And I will just cut this here. And snap it. Get rid of that, we don't want that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to square this up. And I'm going to make this stick, oh, I don't know. For right now we're just going to square it up. And we can adjust the length of that stick too. So now we got this nice square stick, and what I do is I just make another cut down here all the way around and snap it. We got plenty of stick left over to almost make another one of these traps. Clean that up. So now what you want to do with this little stick, and this is your this stick gets the other end of the string tied to it, and it's kind of part of your trigger system. And the only thing I do is I go around and I do another little beaver chew all the way around this, because you got to tie the string to it too. And got to be careful, don't cut yourself in the leg or anything. Like I said, it's only got to be deep enough to hold the string in place. Okay, so now you got all three pieces made. So now all I gotta do is cut a piece of string. And when I'm measuring for a piece of string, I usually just set the trap up kind of mock wise, and basically just kind of set it up the way I think it's gonna sit, which would be probably about like that. There. So I need a string hole yay long. So I'll cut one a little bit longer, and I'll show you how to tie these on. The way I tie these on is I tie them on with just plain old granny knots, because I want the string to be able to swivel around on these things, because it seems to help everything line up a little better if the string will move. So let me go get a piece of string and we'll work on that next. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to use a piece of bank line, and the reality is that if you're out in the woods you could actually make your own string. My favorite plant to make string from is dogbane, and you know, that's just how I like to do it. So But for the sake of the video, I'm not gonna. I already did a string video earlier, probably last year or so. So I'm not gonna do another one just for this trap. It was a cordage video on how to make cordage dog bane. So if you want to look that up, you can. It's actually one of the first videos I did. So basically, I just tie that thing on there. Make sure it's nice and tight. And the important thing for me is I want to make sure that it's able to swivel a little bit on here. And that's important for me because it seems to help me line my traps up a little easier. So now I'm going to reset this thing up again and get a better measurement of how long I want this string to be. So basically, it's going to go around there and get set like this. This can be a little tough. Do this. So we'll make it a little extra long. We'll make it right here. So now you just cut that. And normally I'd burn these ends off with a lighter too, and I don't think I have a lighter in my pocket. Sometimes I carry a lighter, sometimes I don't. I'm not a smoker, so it's just whether or not I have one type of thing. Okay, so we'll put this piece of bank line aside, or roll the bank line aside, and we'll tie this thing off on the other end. And the same thing with this end. I kind of like having it swivel a little bit, so I do the same thing on it. Probably use whatever knot you want, as long as it allows it to slip around. So there you go. So now I use my knee as a pedestal. You just take this on there and you slip this around string first, like so. So the string's up against here like that. And then you take the short end of your notch trigger stick and put it against there like this. Adjust this up a little bit and you're set. And I can tell already that I'm going to want to turn this a little bit down. And that's the glory of this whole setup. You can adjust it a little bit. So now I can set this as high as I want. I can go down a little bit, set it down here if I want, depending on how high I want to set this thing up. So the only thing that's left is a trigger stick, and we'll go ahead and work on that here in a second. Okay, so now for setting this up, I got a little tiny piece of stone, and that is going to be for this. I will set this on the ground and put the trigger stick on top of it. And normally I'd try to pick a piece of ground that was nice and hard. I'm just doing this in the backyard today though, because I think we got a thunderstorm coming and I'm not going to be out in it. So setting this thing is pretty easy. What I do is I put these two together like so and hold them like right where they pivot. Then I take my little stone and I set it up on the ground right here. And the important thing is that you want this stick right here to be on the outside of your weight when you set this. So basically you want it to set kind of like that, so that this is outside of this weight. And then what you want to do is you want to take this around here like this and put your trigger around there like so. And it's set. So the next thing I need to do is find a stick that's long enough to go from here to here to set this up totally. So that's the next thing I'll do is I'll just take a stick and just kind of shove it down in there like that and get an idea how long it's got to be, and I'll cut it off. So let me go ahead and cut this thing off, and then we'll set this thing. Okay, so when I cut this off, I cut it off on both ends. This end's not so important because it's going to get stuck like all the way back in the back of the trap, between the ground and the back of the trap. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but a lot of people will split this, or they'll put a point on it, or they'll tie a tiny little short rope to it, and that's what they'll put their bait on with. That way the animal's got to work at getting the bait off, and as he works at getting the bait off, he'll actually set the trap itself off. So the next thing I do is make sure this is kind of flat. Some people round it. I do sometimes, depending on how sensitive I want it to be. So now all we got to do is set this thing. So we'll set it. Just like so. And hopefully my cat won't set it off, which is possible. Hey, no. Being cat, you'll have that. We live in a wildlife area, and the wildlife is knocking my trap over. So, it's kind of set, but I'm about ready to trap a cat. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, I'm back. We're gonna try setting this thing up again. Hopefully the cat's off and doing his own thing. And it actually broke. Okay, so this end of the stick was starting to actually break a little bit, so I had to shorten a little bit and put a new notch in there. I notched it a little too deep. You'll have that sometimes. So I'm going to pause this camera for a second and see what it's going to do rain-wise. Okay, so I broke the end of the stick off, and I re-notched it again, and since I shortened this stick a little bit, it made the string too long, so I just looped it around once onto itself and shortened it that way. That way it's still movable and all that stuff. So we're going to get another thunderstorm here pretty quick, so I'm going to go ahead and try to set this up for you real quick so you can see how it works. Basically I take it like that and I hold it like this. That way I can swivel it a little bit on its own. And I still have my little piece of stone down there. And I put this in here like so. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of it. And I set it just like that. Take it up just a little bit. And then this is my trigger stick, so I just take it and jam it into the back, which I'm doing this from the wrong side. Trying to not get my fingers in there too. And then it's set. So the only thing that's left now is you'd want to put some bark around both sides of this so the mouse can, or rat or squirrel or chipmunk can only get in through the front. That way he's got to go all the way to the back of the trap to try to set it off. And then when he sets it off, he just gets back there and he starts working at the bait a little bit, and boom, he sets the trap off. So that's a Paiute Deadfall trap. And it's a pretty simple trap to make. All I wanted to say thank you, and I'm going to do a bunch of these videos, different kinds of traps. And if you like them, like, share, subscribe, comment. I like the comments. So thanks.